Hello Internet, my name's Ryan and this is Ryan Builds Wheels. It's early 2024 and in early 2024 I took a month off to come to New Zealand. I've come out here to see and unfortunately say goodbye to one of my wonderful partners, so this video is dedicated to her. It's been a wild trip and I'm on my way home back to the UK now, so I'm looking forward to seeing all of my customers and friends back there soon. Today I've made my way to beautiful Wellington, and whilst I head back home, I reckoned that a great way to get my head back in the wheel building game would to go and spend a little bit of time with fellow wheel building nerd and owner of Wheelworks New Zealand, Tristan. So let's hit the streets of Wellington, let's find out where he's based, let's go and have a little chat, see around his workshop and see how they do things in the Antipodean Islands. Woo! Alright, just wandering off Cuba Street now, which is where I'm told all us queers hang out here in Wellington, so I'll have to go and check that out in a little while, probably this evening or something. And I believe we're getting close to Tristan's workshop. Alright, and that's us. Welcome to Wheelworks HQ. Let's go in. Hey, look, it's the Wheelworks workshop. Tristan. Hello.
Hello.
Do you remember your first set of wheels?
I remember the first wheel I built. I would have been like 13 years old, and I took apart my mountain bike wheel.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that the spokes were different length on like one side to the other. And I'm not sure I ever got it back together, but I remember hours in the backyard. Yeah, so I remember that one, and then I remember like being taught at a bike shop level. Pretty rough and ready, I guess, isn't it? At a lot of bike shop level, especially at that time it did.
When did you get into working in bike shop?
I worked part-time for a shop in Canada before I moved here, and then when I moved here I was 20 and I worked in a shop. At that time, like Mavic were the brand. Like every giant bike came with a pair of Mavic Askiums, the cheap aluminum ones. And that was it. It was kind of that. And then at the time, like a hand-built wheel was a simple tuber hubs on Open Pros.
Yes.
That weighed like 2.5 kilos.
Oh man.
And there was nothing in between.
Yeah, I remember those days.
And looking at like, I was really like the WHEELBUILDER forums and stuff like that at the time. And like that, those rims like the Kinlan XR270 would just come out. Yeah. And all of a sudden, like these guys in the US were building like 1,500 gram sets of wheels using like normal components. Really good durability. Lively, wider rims were starting to become a thing.
For not too much money?
Certainly for a lot less than a pair of Syrians. Yeah, so I did what I was studying, it's basically a part-time business, and then finished up my study and the decision to make of whether I wanted to work in some sort of engineering field or keep on with Wheelworks. And I was really enjoying it, been running it for about a year and a half, 2 years at that point, starting to get repeat customers, and people, like at the time here in New Zealand there wasn't anything like that, so made the decision to keep going with it.
What got you known as a wheel builder?
Well, I think at the time here, like it was a small, it's a much smaller country than the UK, obviously. There was no one else that was specialising in wheels. Wheels were something that some local bike shops could do. Then and now there's like that sort of black art, black magic kind of, a lot of that behind it. Like I said, we were going up against Mavic Askiums and Syrians, so it kind of wasn't hard to put a set of wheels on someone's bike that would just really change how their bike rides.
Yeah, which back then felt magical to people because they didn't have any other reference point.
Yeah.
And things I'm always constantly trying to do is let people know that wheel building isn't this dark art.
Yeah, I've always really maintained like building a wheel is not that hard. Building a good wheel is difficult. But the really, really tricky part is building a lot of good wheels. That's the difficult bit, and that's the bit that I got really obsessed with. At that time, the kind of norm for hand-built wheels, you had to ride it a couple of times and then bring it back and someone would retension and retur it.
Which just shows that idea that you've got to bring a wheel back to have it re-looked after because it's going to bed in. It just goes to show that a lot of people didn't have an understanding of how a wheel needs to be built. If anyone ever tells you that the wheel you just bought needs bedding in,
you can't have them bed in and come back. It doesn't work.
So who's this?
This is Grimlock. This is it's a pneumatic cylinder that pushes down.
Yep.
This was like one of the first kind of tools that I built like we talked about, just trying to solve that problem of how do we make sure the wheels don't come back. There's lots of ways of pre-stressing or stress relieving, whatever you want to call it. A lot of them rely on you standing on the wheel or using your fingers, and I didn't like that. They weren't consistent, and I thought that I could do better. So this is one of the first things I built. It was a prototype. It's a really rough base. I thought, I'll test and see if this kind of concept works. If it does, I'll make it better.
So this is Mark 1.
This is Mark like 0.1.
And it works great.
And it works so well that I've never replaced anything of it. So I've never replaced the base. I've done a lot in the upper end. I put a little microcontroller on it, set it up with 3 different pressures and some solenoids. So you can now say how long you want it to press down for and what pressure setting it does. It's like adult Lego, isn't it? Yes, we've got 3 different pressures, low, medium, and high, and then either a 9-second cycle or a 3-minute cycle that we use for bird spokes. So just push the button, cylinder comes down. So what it's doing is it's loosening off the spokes that are on the top of the wheel and then overstressing the ones on the bottom.
Transformers?
Yeah, it was a friend of mine that named it. I actually, she came up with the name. Just that controlled amount of force. But I didn't watch Transformers as a kid, so I don't really understand the reference.
Right.
Yeah.
I was wondering whether I was speaking to a fellow nerd.
No, it's not. Well, yes,
not
in the Transformer nerd world. I've got other nerds. This is lacing jig. It's a little bit like Grimlock was 15 years ago. It looks very rough. It is very rough, and it's a proof of concept that worked, and then got little bits kind of tacked onto it. So we put the rim in, hit the foot pedal, and again, don't tell Ryan from Island Instruments, but I repossessed his foot pedal, and pneumatic cylinders come in and hold the rim in place. And then we can put a spoke nipple on, and then hit the other foot pedal.
Sick.
That's done on a depth setting tool, so the same that you're probably using in a drill, like a handheld drill. It's a DeWalt drill that I got from the tip shop, and just mounted on a pneumatic cylinder. So it's doing the same thing that you do by hand. It's just a little bit more rigid. The desk is height adjustable. Just find it a little bit easier and less burden, basically.
Stylistically, we kind of differ. Whilst mine is often a little bit more agricultural in the way that I do things, whilst being underpinned by a very thorough understanding of the physics behind a bicycle wheel. What I like about your setup is you create a small-scale one-man wheel building factory.
I sometimes struggle with the word production line because to me that means that you're just churning out the same unit again and again, and I'm not sure that that's I don't have a lot of interest in that. But what I do have a lot of interest in is like you talk about making the best wheel for a specific customer, and that will vary depending on the customer.
Yeah.
So then how, in a very consistent, methodical, planned way, do we take raw components and turn it into that wheel? And there is a production process for that, but I think I prefer the production process rather than production line, because the process has to accept different size rims, different width rims, different materials, different types of spokes, number of spokes, all those things that are like a factory wheel building machine. Yeah. Those things are incredible, but they can't do.
No, they can't do what you do.
They can't do one-offs.
Yeah,
that's just not what they do.
Whenever I go and meet another wheel builder and perhaps build with them or work alongside them, that's always what the discussion is about. It's always a sharing of process, and I think what strikes me most in your process is you're striving for not just accuracy, but there's a lot of repeatability I see, and accountability as well. So I see stuff like your spoke calculation stuff, and the way that you said that feeds into a whole bunch of other things you do. The fact that it's repeatable, and there's also a certain flavour to everybody's workshop. My workshop tends to be a little bit more chaotic at times. The more that I learn about myself, the more I manage to control that chaos or find that there's ways that I can really focus. Talking of focus, I'm going to go off on a tangent. Are you familiar with the idea of flow, the philosophical or psychological concept of flow?
Marginally.
Yeah, well, you'll get it when riding. You ride mountain bike, I do. Yeah, so you might experience it when building, and you'll experience it when riding. But you know, that's one of my, like, why do I build wheels? Often because it brings me like a sense of peace. I find it to be a very meditative task. When I come to sort of controlling my environment with wheel building and how I want my workshop to be, that's what I'm seeking, is like an attempt to have that meditative flow state. And I think that's where different builders' personalities end up shining in their workshops. Can you show me another piece of equipment that you really like?
You want to look at the Island IX digital.
Is it Island IX?
It's Island IX, yeah.
Oh, okay. We're going to show you a piece of equipment from Island IX. I've been telling people that I really want to try the Islandix tools for a while, so let's look at Island IX.
Yeah, that's Ryan from the company, but I think it is Island IX. So we use a CenturyMaster stand that we've modified. We bought these, I've got a couple of them. We bought them many years ago, maybe 15 years ago or something. And they're really nice. The arms don't arc in, they come in parallel to each other. They're really stiff, they're really repeatable, especially like if you've got a thrust bearing in here. And then I built the stuff out of 80/20 to be able to use the digital gauges that Ryan uses for the Island IX on little dials, so you can adjust for rim size, and that's just all 3D printed. The Island IX is a little black box which takes inputs from the digital readouts and basically just graphs it onto the screen so that you can kind of it visualizes how the wheel looks for you. So essentially we learn the wheel, hold the space bar and rotate the wheel. And it's learned as we've gone around. So we've got total lateral run out of 1.68 millimeters and a vertical run out of 0.3 millimeters. And it's sitting off center by about 0.6 of a millimeter. The nice thing there is it's also going to give you some hints about what to do, and you can see here that the rim needs to come to the right and needs to come down. So I can loosen off spokes to make that happen. And essentially, as I go around the wheel, I'm now out of that tolerance box, which is the inside there. I can start adjusting spokes to make the wheel better.
Yeah, this kind of graph is, even on a standard touring stand, is at more advanced stages. As part of some of my courses, I start trying to get students to see that graph in space and be informed and cross-referencing those two tolerances, both lateral and radial, and it's just faster. It's having that huge screen, especially, probably means way less fatigue.
I think it lets you do kind of the three things at once a lot better. It lets you do a lateral, vertical, and you can see how far off dish you are. Yeah. So you can make an informed decision about which side of the wheel you want to pull in which direction. Yeah. And you can sort of, I find you can get into that tolerance area much faster.
Digital and analog.
I love the digital stuff, and I love how it takes some of the boring bits out of the wheel building process, and how it really, I find it lets you use the brain for the stuff that the brain is good at. Yep. And you're spending a lot less time just turning spoke nipples, which is you're not adding any value.
The dog's body work, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. The fewer times you can touch a spoke nipple between no tension and full tension, you can end up with a better wheel. The quicker you can do that, in the sense of the fewer times you need to do it, that ends up in a better wheel. And I find that this Island IX stuff, it just really helps you visualize that and do it.
Are you happy to share about how and what tolerances you choose to keep?
Yeah, certainly. We do total indicated run out of 0.25 of a millimeter, both laterally and vertically. And then when the wheel is correctly dished, it's sitting off towards the high tension side by 0.1 to 0.3 millimeters.
One of the things that we do need to talk about in the industry and to riders more is about tension drop and how that affects wheels, most often with tube's tyre setup. So the fact that you're accounting for that already. How did you come to decide how much out of dish you're going to build to accommodate what those things are?
Before we had the digital stuff, we had like similar to the P&K with the analog gauges.
Yep.
So you can still do a pretty good job of knowing how far off center you are or need to be. And we took a bunch of wheels that are sort of our common 80% of what we build, put tires on them, use those tools to measure how far they move when the tire is A, installed and then B, inflated. And it definitely varies a lot. but we found that 0.2 was about the average. So we aim for tolerance blocks of 0.1 to 0.3.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
A common question that I think comes up for people just getting into it, or on forums, or when people start building wheels potentially professionally, is how to handle a spoke tension drop. And some people often ask, oh, should you like over tension the rim to start with, or retension the rim after it's good? I know, for example, that DT Swiss specifically say no, build to the tension we specify, and then when the tension's going to drop due to tyre inflation, just leave it at that. You don't over tension start with to, yeah.
No, we don't. But then none of the rims that we use require that. I think in the earlier days of road tubeless, especially, some of the really lightweight aluminum rims would drop tension so much that they weren't rideable. So that's obviously an issue. But all of the modern stuff doesn't do that, and certainly none of the carbon stuff does it to that sort of extent. So no, we build to 120 kgf on the drive side, or the high tension side, and that's it. Yeah.
I'm smiling and laughing because if anyone ever asks me, I turn around and say, I build to 120 kilos of force on the drive side or the front disc side, and that's all I fucking do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really nice to see parity there. You seem most excited by Tina, because it obviously makes a lot of difference to your life.
Yeah, Tina was one of the first, the first combinations of using computer programming and mechanical stuff to come together and kind of solve a wind problem that I had. So I am happy about it, yeah, and I use it every day, and it does I think it does a really fantastic job. We started using the double-headed nipples a lot, and one of the big reasons for that is I find it way easier to use. There's some spoke strength issues as well, but they're very comfortable. And putting the tool in and counting up to 4 and counting up to 3 again, it's just boring. Machines are very good at doing boring things. So built Tina Turner, and it's a very large stepper motor with one of those square drive tools on it. We can dial in how many turns we want in quarter turn increments. We can put in an overshoot if we're doing round section spokes, and then we can change the speed. And then when we hit the foot pedal, the tool accelerates up smoothly, counts the rotations, and then decelerates back again. So you can very, very quickly just put that number of turns on every spoke that you need. We talked about having tennis elbow from building wheels.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that. It's just a very accurate, very consistent way of getting the wheel up to tension.
Mildly jealous.
I think most wheel builders that see it are mildly jealous, because it's it's something we all dealt with, right? It's Tina Turner, take the boring bits out of wheel building.
You were talking about trying to get to a high tension as quickly as possible and touching nipples as little as possible during your process.
Yeah, well, I think what I was trying to say there is that obviously the wheel needs to be at tension when it's ready to go, and you want to make as few adjustments at high tension as you can, because that's where you're putting a lot of stress on the spokes and nipples. You're also twisting the spoke a lot more. So my sort of philosophy is that you try and do once the wheel's got enough tension that it's kind of holding itself in place, you can do a lot of the truing and evening the tension out at that point, and then reasonably quickly, in the sense of not touching each spoke too many times, go from that medium tension up to final tension. Yeah, and that's
what I call on courses. I tell students that we're going to go to a working tension, and then we're going to bring stuff up to a high tension. And yeah, I think that's the part of the job of a wheel builder over time, at least to make our own lives easier, is finding out and getting a feel for not necessarily each wheel build, but whilst you're building, is how quickly can I get to, after getting tolerances there, how quickly can I get up to tension? Interesting stuff on the spoke cutter behind you, which I will blur out. I promise my viewers it is not a penis, but it's very clever. And
we'll talk about that one day, but that's something we're not ready to talk about.
That's fine. You've done a lot of really cool stuff with your own spoke calculation software.
The spoke calculating, I think it's so important to get the right length spokes, and I don't think you can leave that up to some random website or app they might change how they're dealing with spoke stretch, or how they're dealing with how they're measuring ERD, because there's different ways of measuring ERD, right? So I think you need to be able to do all of that yourself. And the actual math is not overly difficult. So,
yeah.
This is, we just use basic spreadsheet and lap script stuff that that calculates it. But I think it's, if you want to take it seriously, I think it's so important that you're calculating your own spoke lengths with software that you know is going to give you the same answer. Counting spokes, I'm sure you've counted a lot of spokes in your time, especially like when you're selling them. And it's a pain because you can get the number wrong. And it's also, I find it's really difficult to forecast how many spokes you need of each length because we can buy them in very small increments, but making sure that we have the right ones for any given wheel is quite difficult. But you don't know until you've built the wheel what length you need, so it's kind of a circular thing. So we would carry a wide range of spokes and then every month or so stock take them. Counting spokes is terrible. So I built this, which is a load cell hooked up to a Raspberry Pi. We can blip the barcode. It goes into our inventory management system. It tells us what spoke is in the box. If we then remove some spokes from the box, it will tell us that I've taken out the number of spokes that I need. So if you're needing 16 spokes for half of a 32-hole wheel, it's super easy to just take out the ones that you need. And then as soon as you've done that, you just lift the box up. The system then goes back to the inventory management system. It knows how many spokes are remaining in the box and it does a stock adjustment. And then it references that against the wheel you're building at the time. So we know that wheel used 286.
Was chatting hubs and other products off camera. That was really good to be able to have those open and honest conversations with another professional.
Yeah, you learn a lot, don't you, when you are selling stuff all day. You learn what works and what doesn't, and that's not necessarily the same stuff that the Facebook comment section thinks works.
Or marketing departments.
Or marketing departments, yeah.
Trust your wheel builder. You've created the Wheel Builders Hub. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so they're made in mainland Taiwan by a company that makes like really high-end hubs and other bits and pieces. We did not design the free hub body, they do that, so we leave all of that engineering to them. They've got experience in that, and I'm sure we know how hard it is to make a free hub body doesn't creak and pop and groan and blow bearings and all that sort of stuff. So they are the experts at that. What it allows us to do is do the rest of it. So what do we want those dimensions to be? How much do we want those flanges to angle in? What do we want the spoke hole diameter to be? What does the chamfer look like? All those little things that make an impact on, from a wheel building, how it goes together. And then, especially the stuff around where the spoke sits and how it's supported, that leads towards more or less broken spokes. So we can do things to make sure that we're not breaking spokes at the J bend. And then because we are a small company that builds a really diverse range of wheels, we need a hub that can do everything. And so right from the get-go, the dial has been just absolutely super modular. And we've iterated it over the years, but everything's been backwards compatible. So if you want a 150mm downhill hub with a Campeg free hub body, no problems at all, we can do that.
The hub shell body is completely unique to Wheelworks.
Correct. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. I'm assuming you've got a 6-bolt and a center lock and a boost and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we do 6-bolt center lock, we do non-boost, boost, and super boost. All the frame bodies. XTR, Campeg, M3W, Mark Swine, HT25, HT26.
Black or black?
We have the option of colors. We have tried doing colors, and I know with a lot of the other brands, like Hope, we do a lot of colors, but we still sell 90% black. People love to go like, what colors does it come in? You tell them like the whole range. Oh, I think I'll have black.
Can I see the free hub?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all tool free. So free hub just comes off.
I think these images are available online, aren't they?
They are, yeah. And the one we're looking at here is a road disc hub. So that's the lighter weight free hub. It's a 4-pole system. All the mount bikes are a 6-pole system, either stacked as a 2x3 or all 6 poles engaging at the same time. Again, depending on the use and what it needs to be.
Lovely.
That's the road one, so it's got the aluminum axle in it to save weight. You can put that into a gravel bike, no problems. If it's a loaded gravel bike, then we'll put the steel axle in it.
Yep. The immediate thing that I was interested to see is that you've spec stainless bearings straight away, and given New Zealand's climate, then you're experiencing similar things to me. So whenever I do replace bearings on a lot of the hubs that we sell, that's the first thing that happens. I'm going like, well, you're going stainless this time, because it's not that you've worn them out, it's water and grit has rusted them out.
Yeah, and I think the ceramic stuff gets kind of confused in there as well, doesn't it? But there's often a perception that ceramic stuff, because it costs a lot more money, is a lot better, and often it wears out a lot faster than just a good quality steel bearing.
Yep.
I'm not convinced that like the mild steel versus stainless steel makes a big difference. I'm more convinced that like you can get a good quality mild steel bearing or a poor quality stainless, or vice versa. So I think it's more about the bearing quality then it's material. Why do we do our own hubs?
Mm-hmm.
And a big reason of that is wanting consistent supply.
Yep.
It was wanting a hub that can go across the whole range of use, from road gravel, all sorts of weird and wonderful bikes, and people wanting to do weird stuff to them, and knowing what the quality is. And we've been buying hubs through some American producers that were making mostly good hubs, but then you get a batch that's just not very good.
It comes back to what we were talking earlier about repeatability and process.
And we're able to, with this manufacturer, we're able to ensure that the quality is absolutely top-notch quality every single time.
What the other bits you got?
That's all decal stuff. So
that's your prep station.
Yeah. Oh, you can put the rim taping station as well. You'll love that. Put the wheel in and close it up. Rim tape goes on, and then rather than really having to fight, all you just need to do is just rotate the rim easily by hand. The roller does the hard work of pushing down into the gutter of the rim, and it just leaves a really nice, consistent, well stuck down section of rim tape. I've thought about motorizing it. I don't think I will, but I have thought about having like a little heat gun on there that's softening the rim tape. Maybe one day, we'll see.
So thanks very much for Tristan for joining us. Thank you very much for spending several hours with me shooting the shit. It's been lovely.
It's been great. It's been great to hear your take on different things and why you go about things a different way. It's really cool.
This is a YouTube channel, so I'm going to say, hey, go and hit subscribe, tell your friends, hit like. That really helps us out, and check out my Patreon page. But rather than ending on a piece of fluff and the standard YouTube stuff, then I wanted to ask Tristan a difficult question at the very end, or at least something as a positive, which I think I'm going to make part of every Meet the Builder series. And that question is, why do you think there should be more hand-built wheels in the world?
You can take a really average bike and turn it into a really good riding bike by having the right set of wheels, or vice versa. And the simple reality is that by churning out millions of the same wheel, it's not personalized to the rider. It's not going to be as good as something that is spec for a particular rider and way they want to ride and where they want to ride. So that can only be done by smaller companies that are usually hand building, or using some level of small scale automation to help with that. But that unique bespoke wheel will end up riding better than something that's not designed for you.
The right wheels for the right rider, hand built, time and time again.
Yeah.
Great. Tristan, it's been a pleasure. Thanks very much, Ben.
Good to see you.
It's time for us to go home and me to fly back to the UK. Let's go!